Women are animals with long hair and short ideas. That sentence hits like a hammer, cruel, callous, and offensive. And yet, it was written by Arthur Schopenhauer, one of philosophy's most influential pessimists. On the surface, it sounds like pure misogyny, and maybe it is. But what if, underneath the sharpness, Schopenhauer was revealing something else, something not about women, but about the wound that love can leave behind? See, Schopenhauer wasn't just trying to insult women for the sake of it. He was dissecting love the way a biologist dissects a creature, to expose its rawest, most primitive instincts. And in that process, what he uncovered wasn't just about the feminine. It was about the terrifying vulnerability that love awakens in men. You might think, this is just bitterness. And sure, part of it is. But behind his icy words was a man who had been hurt badly, not just by women, but by the very idea of love. And that's what makes his voice so relevant today, especially in a world where many men feel unseen, outcompeted, or quietly discarded. Because when a man like Schopenhauer says something that harsh, he's not just attacking women. He's exposing a wound, one that many men carry but have never dared to speak aloud. Let's be honest. How many men today silently ask themselves, why wasn't I enough? Why did she leave when I gave her everything? Why does she always seem to want more? More money, more confidence, more power. These questions aren't born from hatred. They're born from heartbreak. And that heartbreak, if it isn't understood, becomes resentment. Not because love is evil, but because most men don't know the rules of the game they're playing. That's where Schopenhauer enters with a knife of cold realism. He wasn't here to give hope. He was here to expose what he believed was the harsh truth. That love is not some spiritual connection. It's a survival mechanism, a biological negotiation dressed up in poetry. He believed that human life isn't ruled by logic or compassion. It's ruled by what he called the will to live, a primal, blind force that exists in every living thing, from bacteria to humans. This will wants one thing and one thing only, survival. And it fuels everything, our desires, our dreams, our hunger, our lust. According to Schopenhauer, love is just this will wearing a mask. You think you're in love? No. You've been hijacked by biology. You think you chose her? Your instincts did. You think she saw you for your heart? Her subconscious was scanning for your strength, your stability, your status. Not because women are shallow, not because they're cruel, but because, biologically, they had to be selective. That's where the concept of hypergamy comes in. Hypergamy isn't some internet insult. It's a real, evolutionary pattern. It refers to the natural tendency of women, across cultures and time, to pair with men of equal or higher status. In ancient times, this was about survival. A woman who chose poorly didn't just end up unhappy. She and her children could die. So nature built in a radar. Not a conscious one, but a deeply embedded instinct that says, who is the man who can lead, protect, and provide? And here's the kicker. That instinct didn't vanish with the invention of iPhones or birth control pills. It's still here, still working, still influencing who gets chosen and who gets left behind. Let me ask you, have you ever been the guy who did everything right? You showed up. You were kind. You listened. You supported her dreams. And still, she left. Not for a better man morally, but for a man who seemed to carry more power, more confidence, more purpose. That doesn't just hurt. It crushes you in a very specific way. It makes you feel replaceable, like all your effort, all your goodness, wasn't enough to compete with someone who didn't even try as hard as you did, but had the aura of dominance, success, or certainty. That's when men start questioning the whole system. That's when resentment is born. Not because men hate women, but because they don't understand why being good didn't win. And that's exactly what Schopenhauer predicted. He said, love isn't about virtue. It's not about soulmates. It's not about compatibility. It's the will to live, moving chess pieces on the board of biology. And if you don't know that, you'll keep trying to win a game with the wrong rules. Now, this doesn't mean that women are cold and calculating. Most don't even realize they're doing this. Just like most men don't realize how much they're drawn to beauty, youth and fertility signals. It's not personal. It's instinct. But that's the part that hurts the most, isn't it? Because it means that even the deepest love stories might be less about the heart and more about hidden instincts quietly negotiating in the background. That's why Schopenhauer's work is so disturbing. He wasn't just philosophizing about love. He was stripping it of all its romance. To him, love wasn't a gift. It was a trap, a trick played by nature to get us to reproduce. And once nature gets what it wants, the passion fades, and we're left with the reality of pain, rejection, and unmet expectations. Now let's pause here. You might be thinking, so what am I supposed to do with all this? Am I supposed to give up on love? Become cynical? Distrust every woman I meet? That's not the point. The point is, wake up, understand the reality, see the hidden forces at play. Not to hate them, but to stop being confused by them. Because once you see love not as a fairy tale but as a biological transaction dressed in beautiful language, you stop feeling like a victim. You stop thinking, she left me because I wasn't lovable. And you start understanding, her instincts were scanning for something I didn't project. That doesn't mean you're worthless. It just means it's time to grow into your power. Not the fake kind where you try to look rich or act dominant, but the real kind, where your direction, your confidence, your discipline, and your energy become undeniable. Because here's the truth that even Schopenhauer missed. You're not just a pawn of biology. You're not just a victim of hypergamy. You have the power to evolve, to become, to take that heartbreak, that confusion, that pain, and forge it into something unshakable. And that's where we're headed next. Let's dig deeper into the one word that keeps surfacing in all these conversations: hypergamy. It's thrown around online like a weapon, sometimes used to blame women, to justify men's bitterness. But what if we stripped away the noise, the judgment, the anger, and just looked at it for what it is? Hypergamy is the instinctive drive in women to seek out partners who are equal to or higher in status, whether that's physical, emotional, financial, or psychological. It's not manipulation. It's not deception. It's survival coding, deep, ancient, and powerful. Picture a world thousands of years ago. No hospitals, no police, no food delivery. A woman's entire life, her safety, her children's survival, and her ability to eat, hinged on the man she chose. If she picked a man who couldn't protect her, who lacked drive, who had no future, she didn't just lose out on comfort. She put herself and her offspring in danger. So nature gave her a radar. Not one she can explain, or even fully control. It's not logical. It's not always fair. But it's there, whispering in the background. Can this man lead? Does he have direction? Is he resilient under pressure? That radar still exists today. No, we're not in caves anymore. But the instincts didn't get the memo. That ancient scanner is still working, still looking. Only now, instead of scanning for a strong hunter, it's scanning for something less visible. Ambition, certainty, purpose, presence. And here's the hard truth. You could be the kindest man in the world, gentle, loyal, loving. But if you lack that presence, if you're adrift, passive, unsure of yourself, that radar doesn't light up. Not because she's cruel, but because her biology doesn't respond. And that's where the fracture begins. Because from the male perspective, it feels like betrayal. I showed up for her. I supported her. I never disrespected her. Why wasn't I enough? The answer? Because your character isn't the only thing being measured. Your energy is too. And in a strange twist of fate, a man with more flaws but more presence will often be chosen over a man with good intentions but no fire. Think of it like this. Presence is what makes a man walk into a room and quietly command it. He doesn't beg. He doesn't chase. He just is. Rooted, centered, moving with intention. That is the energy hypergamy responds to. Not because women are shallow, but because that presence signals something ancient. Strength, protection, direction. Schopenhauer, in his bitter way, saw this. He didn't call it hypergamy. He didn't have the term, but he saw the pattern. Again and again, he watched men like himself, intelligent, sensitive, deep, get overlooked for bolder, louder, more magnetic men. And instead of transforming that pain into growth, he turned it into cynicism. He decided the game was rigged. That love was fake. Those women were deceptive. But maybe the game wasn't rigged. Maybe he just didn't understand the rules. Now let's get real here. A lot of men today are stuck in that same loop. They believe if they're good, loyal, respectful, and emotionally available, they'll be chosen. And when they're not, when she picks someone else, they spiral. That spiral sounds like this. She just wanted someone richer. She chose the bad boy. She didn't appreciate what I gave. But none of those stories are entirely true. What's truer is this. She responded to something you weren't embodying yet. This is where most men go one of two ways. Path 1. They double down on resentment. They start saying things like love is a scam or women only care about money. They join forums, they seek out echo chambers, and they mistake noise for clarity. Path 2. They pause. They feel the pain. And then they ask a better question. What was I missing? Not in her, but in me. Because here's something every man needs to hear. It's not enough to be nice. It's not enough to be respectful. Those things are expected. They're the bare minimum. What moves people, what ignites attraction, is the energy you bring into the room, the direction you walk in, the certainty with which you own your choices. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant. It means becoming solid. Schopenhauer didn't know how to do that. He intellectualized everything. He saw love as a mechanism to be deconstructed, not an opportunity for growth. He let the pain harden him instead of awaken him. But you don't have to repeat that pattern. Because once you understand hypergamy, not as a curse, but as a natural force, you stop resenting it. You start learning how to channel it. You stop asking, why doesn't she choose me? And start building a life so powerful, so rich with meaning, that the question fades altogether. Let's take it even further. What if hypergamy is not your enemy, but your mirror? What if, instead of viewing it as unfair, you viewed it as feedback? She didn't choose you? That's information. That's data. That's a sign. You've still got places to grow. You've still got edges to sharpen. You've still got a mission to claim. Because a man on his mission doesn't ask to be chosen. He becomes the chooser. That's the shift. That's the power. You don't need to become perfect. You don't need to get rich overnight. You just need to stop outsourcing your worth. You need to stop making women the validators of your value. Because the man who stands for something, who builds, who grows, and who walks with clarity, he radiates something rare. And that energy, that gravitational pull, makes chasing unnecessary. It's an attraction without effort. Magnetism without manipulation. But it only happens when you stop seeing love as a prize to win and start seeing it as a reflection of who you've become. And ironically, that's when women notice. Not because you're trying harder, but because you've stopped trying for them. You've started trying for yourself. Let's switch gears now, not away from women, but toward men. Because the real danger isn't in hypergamy. It's in what happens after a man is rejected, abandoned, or simply ignored. It's not the loss that destroys him. It's the silence that follows. There's a wound many men carry, and it doesn't scream. It doesn't bleed where people can see. It hides in quiet places, buried beneath sarcasm, behind jokes, under long work hours, or short, cold answers. You know the kind. Nice guys finish last. All women are the same. Love is just manipulation. But these phrases aren't wisdom. They're shields. What's being said underneath is much simpler and much sadder. I gave everything, and I still wasn't enough. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many men were taught that if they were just good guys, loyal, respectful, supportive, they'd be rewarded. That love would come, that she would stay, that their consistency would win. And then it didn't. She left. Or worse, she stayed, but slowly began to treat him like wallpaper. Present, but unseen. That kind of emotional neglect doesn't explode. It sinks. It eats away at a man's sense of worth, not in a loud, fiery way, but in a quiet erosion of spirit. And what do we tell men when they feel that pain? Be strong. Don't complain. Just move on. Or worse, maybe you were too nice. So what does he do? He shuts up. He locks it down. He tells himself the story he thinks will hurt less. She just wanted someone taller. She only cares about money. Women don't like good men. But these aren't truths. They're coping mechanisms. And while they feel strong at first, like armor, they eventually become cages. You stop evolving. You stop trusting. You start shrinking. Even worse, that pain has to go somewhere. So it finds new homes. In addition, in depression, in obsession with self-improvement that's not about growth but revenge. Or maybe it finds a place in online groups where thousands of men gather to echo one another's pain, turning grief into identity. At first, these places feel like a lifeline. Finally, someone gets it. Finally, I'm not alone. Finally, someone said what I've been thinking. But over time, they stop being healing spaces. They become echo chambers. No one challenges your pain. No one pushes you to grow. They just feed you more blame, more rage, more bitterness. And you start believing the worst about the world, about women, about yourself. Let's pause here, because this is where Schopenhauer's shadow looms the largest. See, he didn't just write as a philosopher. He wrote as a man who felt discarded. His mother didn't love him the way he needed. His romances failed. He often felt invisible to the very people he longed to be seen by. And instead of healing that, he calcified it. He turned pain into philosophy, bitterness into belief. He didn't just observe suffering. He marinated in it. He told himself the story so many men tell in silence. I wasn't chosen, therefore I must be worthless. Love is a lie. Women are the enemy. But here's what no one says out loud. Underneath all that anger is grief. Not rage, not hatred. Grief. The grief of not being seen. The grief of giving everything and still being left behind. The grief of realizing that being kind doesn't guarantee you'll be loved. That grief is heavy, and if you're not careful, it starts to rewrite who you are. It makes you guarded, suspicious, emotionally unavailable. It starts with heartbreak, but it ends with you no longer recognizing yourself. So what do? You don't fake your way out of it. You don't perform, you don't chase, and you don't pretend you're over it when you're not. You face it, you admit what hurt, you name it, and then, slowly, you start to grow from it. Because real masculinity isn't about pretending you're bulletproof. It's about being wounded and still standing. It's about refusing to let heartbreak become your identity. And that's where Schopenhauer missed the mark. He understood the pain of rejection, but he didn't understand what to do with it. He froze. He never turned that pain into power, never transformed the lesson. He simply repeated the conclusion: love is suffering, women are selfish, romance is a trap. But what if the wound was never the end? What if it was the beginning? Because heartbreak, when faced with honesty, can become fuel, not for vengeance, but for vision. Think about it. The greatest men in history, they weren't immune to pain. They were forged by it. Every rejection became a redirection. Every failure became fuel. They didn't let bitterness rot them. They let it refine them. So what if instead of resenting the woman who left, did you thank her? Not with words, not publicly, but privately. As a symbol, a catalyst, a mirror that showed you who you were and who you still needed to become. Because here's the secret. When a man truly starts to build, not from pain but from purpose, everything changes. You stop trying to be liked. You stop asking to be chosen. You start choosing yourself. And when that happens, you no longer chase love. You become the kind of man who attracts it, not because you need it, but because you've become whole without it. That's power, not the loud kind, not the flashy kind, the quiet, steady, undeniable kind. And that's what we'll talk about next. So, where do we go from here? You've faced the heartbreak. You've named the wound. You've stepped out of the echo chambers and into the mirror. Now what? Now, it's time to rebuild. But not in the way you've been told. Not by becoming someone else. Not by trying to impress or chase or dominate. No, the work now is inward. It's not about getting her to choose you. It's about becoming the kind of man you would choose. That starts with a question. What am I still holding on to? Maybe it's a story. I wasn't enough. She didn't see my value. Nice guys always lose. Or maybe it's a fantasy. If I just get rich, they'll come back. If I become tougher, they'll regret leaving. If I learn the right tricks, I can finally win. All of these are traps. They keep you focused on the outside, on approval, on revenge, on validation. And that's not power. That's slavery. Real power begins when you stop chasing and start creating. When you wake up and ask, not, how can I make her want me? But, how can I build a life that I'm proud of? This isn't about hating love. It's about understanding love. This isn't about rejecting women. It's about no longer relying on them for your identity. You want to be the man who no longer fears rejection? Build something no rejection can touch. Start with your body. Not because you want abs for Instagram, but physical strength teaches you discipline. It teaches you to show up for yourself. Sharpen your mind. Read. Learn. Think. Not to be impressive, but because wisdom grounds you. It gives you perspective when emotions flare. It keeps you rooted. Master your time. Stop wasting it on things that numb you. Stop scrolling, binging, and swiping. Time is the only thing you never get back. Own it. And most of all, forge your mission. Ask yourself, what matters to me more than being liked? What am I building that outlasts any one relationship? What kind of man do I want to be remembered as? Because here's the truth. When you have no direction, you drift toward anyone who offers you attention. And that's how you get hurt. But when your life is full, when your day is full of purpose, when your nights are calm because your heart is centered, you become a man who doesn't need attention. And that's exactly why people start giving it to you. It's a paradox. When you no longer crave approval, it flows to you. When you stop asking to be chosen, you start choosing. That's when everything shifts. Not just in love, but in life. Suddenly, rejection isn't the end. It's redirection. It's the universe saying, not her. Not now. Keep going. You've still got work to do. You stop fearing it. You welcome it, because you know who you are. And that identity isn't built on her staying. It's built on you rising. And here's the deeper truth. Not every woman will see your value. Some will walk away. Some will misunderstand you. Some will use you. Some will choose someone else. That's life. But none of that diminishes your worth. Because your value was never supposed to come from someone else's recognition. It comes from what you build, with your time, your mind, your body, your spirit. And yes, love may come. And if it does, beautiful. But it's no longer the center of your universe. It's the bonus, the companion, not the source of your identity. That's the shift. That's the transformation Schopenhauer never made. He stayed bitter because he let pain define him. You're letting it refine you. He saw love as a trap. You're starting to see it as a test, a mirror, a moment, and nothing more. And that's what makes you different. You're not here to be picked. You're not here to impress. You're not here to chase. You're here to build your body, your habits, your self-respect, your discipline, your direction. Because a man who is building from within doesn't crumble when someone walks away. He nods, he lets them go, and he keeps walking, head high, back straight, mission intact. And that's what the world needs now more than ever. Not louder men, not angrier men, but centered men. Men who have looked their pain in the eye, named it, and used it to sharpen their vision. Men who don't need to be chosen, because they've already chosen themselves. So here's your final message. Don't beg, don't chase, don't shrink. Grow, rise, lead, own your story. And let your strength be the kind that doesn't have to shout, because it's too busy building.